Hello everyone. Sorry, I'm not even on screen. My apologies. Hello everyone. This is Sonic Sam. So, Monster Hunter Wilds is coming out in 2 days. I'm very excited to play it. I've been going out of my way to see no trailers and such. I finally saw my first trailer for the game literally the other day. It looks very good, but I don't know anything about the weapons. I don't know anything about how any of the systems have changed. Nothing. So someone told me to watch this video that it would give me exactly what I'm looking for, which is what were people playing in the beta, what were people saying was the best thing in the beta, since anything that was pretty probably was OP during the beta was likely gonna get changed at some point. And he said in this video that they do include some of the data of what's being changed. So I'm actually really excited. I'm hoping Bow, since I'm a Bow main, did very poorly in the beta, so it could get buffed massively. But the bow's always been kind of a high end tier weapon, mostly mostly just due to the fact because it's range, right? So I'm expecting it to do pretty well here, but I'm hoping that it's gonna get nothing but buffs here and it'll be nice. But we'll see.
Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Monster Hunter Wilds talk. Now we're in that awful period between beta and release. I wanted to talk about general popularity of the weapons. What's looking to be the most popular weapons going in and why? And remember, in the betas we played, of course that's the older versions of the weapons. We know, thanks to the community update and different press stuff, that there is lots of weapon changes coming. Obviously, things they've told us about, more obvious changes you could probably feel if you played it, but maybe some sort of stuff too we hopefully will get some patch notes or something on. But going from that beta experience and the older versions of the weapons, going forward with what we know about the weapons and how they're going to change, what are the most popular weapons and why? I want to talk about it. So we ran this poll, asking a simple question: what do you think you're going to play in Wilds? Now, we did allow...
Okay, it was a poll. So I was thinking this might have been more or less like just based on actual data. So I'm assuming it's gonna be based on his community, which obviously is gonna be so much biased or skewed or whatever. So, but I think it'll still be some pretty good data. I'm excited to still check it out.
3 options or 3 votes for this. So you had 3 votes. Let's start with what's the most popular, because I think it's obvious. It's Greatsword with 12% of the vote. Just under 500 votes total. For our audience, this makes sense. Josh has basically been mostly just playing Greatsword for the majority of the time. He's been playing the entire series since the first game, and we were lucky enough to actually get to do a spotlight for all the different weapons. It's something that they're doing on their Twitter account right now. Each weapon's getting a spotlight, a little highlight, and different community creators have been asked to make a video for the respective weapon they're very well known for. So Josh was asked to do Greatsword. I think it's fairly known at this point that Josh is a big Greatsword guy, and so we have a pretty big Greatsword audience. Does that mean the weapon isn't amazing in Wilds? Absolutely not. It's phenomenal. Having an incredible DPS output on, say, its focus attack, with a unique animation behind it, it's very cool. The fact that with its guard, which is newly improved in Wilds to be more reactive responsive, is also a key way to activate clashes as another new mechanic. It's got heavy hits, good range, it can cut tails. They're some of the coolest looking weapon designs in the entire series. In terms of changes, there's only really one big thing we know about that's coming, which is ultimately that they're increasing the damage, the hit values of the True Charge Slash to make it, the biggest hit in the game again. So even compared to the beta...
I mean, it makes sense, right? That if you're charging up to get to that level and hit the monster, you should be doing the most damage. Especially with how slow this weapon is. Like, there's a reason why all the other weapons that are very quick do so little damage, because the amount of hits you can do and can basically guarantee is obviously going to be more than someone who's using a Greatsword, where, yeah, they need to only do one hit to do the same numbers, but there's way more chances to mess it up, right? Because it's such a slow weapon, right? It's so hard to use in specific situations. I get it, right? It should feel like the big ball weapon, like my big PP energy weapon. I completely agree, and I hope it stays like that.
It's only going to hit harder and be an even stronger weapon at launch. So that's the most popular weapon. Let's jump to the least popular weapons and work our way up then. At the bottom, we have these two, heavy bowgun and light bowgun, which doesn't...
You know what? I'm not too surprised on these, specifically just because I know the heavy bowgun was probably changed significantly, since I know it was really, really powerful. By the last time I checked, maybe it was about 4 months ago, when I checked about what the meta was for Wolves, Monster Hunter Wolves, the heavy bowgun was very rarely mentioned quite a lot, and how a team of heavy bowguns would easily destroy a boss just because of augments and stuff. And it was just really good. Like, if you wanted just a really strong, insanely strong weapon, you would play heavy bowgun. And I was like, oh, okay. Which is not one of my favorites. So I'm assuming it probably was changed significantly here, so to not be as ridiculous as it was in Worlds. And plus, I feel like these two weapons just weren't that popular to begin with. I don't think they ever really have been. Because my predictions are like Great Sword, Long Sword, Twin Daggers, and maybe like Bow or like one of the other melee weapons will probably be the most popular. I'm assuming in about that order, just because those always seem like they're really popular, right? There's a reason why they're in like every game, especially Great Sword and Long Sword. Those are super popular melee weapons.
Come as much of a surprise to me, especially with the context of Wilds, where personally I think their showings, their updates aren't as impressive as I would have hoped. Not to say that they're bad weapons, in fact they're very high performers in terms of the Arcveld beta speedrun times. Heavy bowgun is probably going to be one of the most popular secondary weapons for the game, thanks to demon ammo and the perks of having a ranged heavy hitting weapon outside of your main weapon. But why so unpopular as your main weapon? Well, I think it just comes down to the way that Wilds has changed them. Between the two, heavy bowgun on paper seems a lot more interesting and engaging, a lot fresher with the new mechanics that have come, compared to light bowgun. After all, both of them are ranged weapons, using similar ammo types, obviously some differences. They both have a new energy system where you build it up and then spend it. And then that seems to result in different things, but there's a lot of overlap in that mechanic. Meanwhile, heavy bowgun gets a shield that's kind of built in, giving you some defensive block options, but also accessing the clash mechanic. It also amazingly has an offset as a ranged weapon. It's definitely one of the hardest, if not the hardest offset in the game. Light bowgun is, of course, able to shoot and fire and move around very smoothly at the same time. It's going to be a very beginner-friendly weapon, and especially as a ranged weapon, there's lots of perks to that. But by comparison, it's got the same updates as heavy bowgun, but less, and so it being the least popular in this vote didn't surprise me. Above that, then, we have Lance at 5%, just over 5%, 215 votes, sharing the same number with Hunting Horn. Firstly, Lance, not so surprising being lower in the list. It's before.
I didn't want to say too much about this because I don't hate the Lance users because there's so few of them to begin with, but it is a very fun, like, be in your face, do stuff weapon. Like, there's almost be no situation where you won't be in the boss's face because you can literally block everything. But I feel like the data is still so skewed in a way because there's just not many Lance users. Even in Worlds, I just didn't see many Lance users, even though I think they're very underrated. You know, I think they're like underappreciated. Like, when I see a Lance user, I know I'm not gonna have to worry about the boss that much because they're gonna be in its face, beating the hell out of it, right, and be able to stay alive. You know, because obviously hammer users can do something similar as well, but they don't have as much defensive options or as safe as, you know, a Lancer.
Performance in beta was actually not terrible. It's just, it definitely has a lot of criticism about the way the gameplay loop kind of works right now. As the devs themselves said in the community update, they feel that Lance, based on what they saw in the beta, the first one, they've added some new gameplay loops that are great. You're very offensive, aggressive with a Lance, which is not a bad thing, but the other side of the Lance, where you're defensive, counterattacking, taking big hits and retaliating, that's not seeing enough gameplay or engagement, not in the old beta version of the weapon. So in the new version, we know they've got a new counterattack style attack that seems very strong. Obviously with the Lance, you have the whole shield and bonk KO aspect that now exists for it. They're generally improving the moveset for launch. So I think more people are going to at least give it a try. I hope more people do. But
I agree. I hope more people do. I think Lances are super underrated and they should be used more. And to be honest, what I was gonna say is, what was I gonna say? Oh, I was gonna say how the Lance, I think it's just because it seems so boring the way most people don't want to play it, which I think is dumb. I think it deserves, you know, it deserves more love, you know, just like the Hunting Horn. I think that deserves more love as well.
Hunting Horn in 11th place. That's a
surprise. Oh, okay, yeah.
It's in an interesting point right now as Hunting Horn. That little bit of a middle ground between the Rise version, which was super aggressive, to the more alternate hammer version of the world. To me though, it definitely stands out as its own weapon now. I think the echo bubbles are incredible. Some of the stuff we're seeing in the speedruns are super cool, where you're getting 1 or 2 echo bubbles down while maximizing bonk damage at the head on a knockdown creature, reverberating the songs, getting extra damage from that, actually having wide area control because of it. I think it's awesome. We do know that they're technically going to buff it for the full release version as well, though it won't really change anything we experienced in the beta. They told us that in internal testing, the Hunting Horn was overperforming as a secondary weapon for, attack up large song melody.
That makes so much sense, right? So you want to switch to it and basically give yourself your buffs and then switch to your main weapon. Yeah, that makes sense. This is also why I think it's gonna probably still be used heavily, or some type of range options in most situations. But this is just, hey, I want to keep using my main weapon, but I want to get something out of it by giving up my other weapon. Hunting Horn would definitely do that, and I can definitely see a meta where that is the case for almost every situation, which I think is unfortunate. So I can understand if it's over, achieving in the secondary weapon department.
To then swap to your main weapon with that buff. In internal testing, everyone was pretty much doing that because it was so good. Whereas in the beta, we didn't really have buffs as potent as that, so never saw that. If you're using the Hunting Horn, the buffs are going to be more potent for yourself, but if you do the buffs then change to a different weapon, those buffs will last a lot less time. Basically, if you're directly using the Hunting Horn as your main weapon, it's going to be even stronger in terms of output, so I hope its popularity does jump up. Next, 10th place.
And you know what? That makes a lot of sense. I'm glad they're going to be changing that, because that should be the case. That's going to kind of fight the meta of using it only for that. I think some people will, definitely, especially if we're trying to speedrun and they know the boss so well and they just want to get as much damage with the main weapon as possible to speedrun. I could definitely see that being the case still. But I'm glad it won't be the meta. That will probably be like for very few people that want to use that strat, Oh, but this is a surprise to me. Sword and Shield, I figured it would be even closer to the top 5 at least, just because it's a very easy common weapon. But you know what? I'm done, because there's like the charge axe and stuff and the switch axe or whatever it's called. So people probably are looking forward to use those way more. And I'm assuming one of those probably took the more like middle of the pack slots.
Then we have Sword and Shield. This one makes sense, being lower in the popularity. It's not really a surprise in general. It is more of a beginner-friendly weapon. Overall, it is nice to be able to use items and not have to put your weapon away while you're doing stuff. But in Wilds, I guess they've kind of treaded on SNS's uniqueness in that way. If you didn't realize, you can put mantles on without putting your weapon away. You could fire, say, a flash pod without putting your weapon away. It's not universal like it is for SNS, but what I'm saying is it's kind of treading on that unique aspect of the weapon. SNS does allow you to flow around the monster and the whole fight, never really overcommitting to long animations. In the beta, there are actually some issues with that. For example, the new Charge Chop, really strong but does have a really long animation lock, and with the new attack leaning into a new combo, that's kind of overshadowed other ways to play, such as Perfect Rush. In the full release version, we know that they've really unlocked the weapon in terms of mobility. You should be able to attack and flow and move around without ever stopping, able to guard at the drop of a hat or weave into a different combo from most any other attack. Charge Chop shouldn't hold you in place as long, and they've seemingly improved the motion values of the Perfect Rush to encourage that being a valid option again. So
nice. I like that. The thing that made this weapon so unique and easy to use is because you can still use items while your weapon's out and stuff like that. That makes sense, lean towards that, It's always been a pretty decent weapon, and the Sword and Shield mains that are out there, they're brutal. Like they're all over, and they're doing damage, and you can tell when they know a boss well, because they show it off with how well they use that weapon. It's actually my favorite weapon, which my second is also, the twin blades or dual blades, and my first being the bow. So yeah, no, I use this weapon a little bit here and there, and I do like using it just because how fast you are. It's the dual blade speed with the guard ability of like a lance, but kind of the mixed bag, the jack of all trades, which I think is really good. I think it literally is the best weapon if you're new, in my personal opinion.
I think the launch version is going to feel significantly better than the beta version. Maybe its popularity will increase because of that. Up next though, above that, we have Hammer, which is fair enough at 9th place. Hammer is doing great in Wilds. I think a lot of people have fallen in love with the Mighty Charge spin. It's super satisfying.
Sick.
Lots of quality of life though is here, whether you're using the grapple to move while you're charging, or leaning into some of the best offset options out of all the weapons. Here you can hold it like a counter, which feels a lot easier to do. To access it, obviously it's behind different movesets, but it's the fact that they made it so Spinning Bludgeon can be comboed in from most every other attack in the game, allowing Spinning Bludgeon to be more of a meta thing in the regular moveset, which is really cool. But basically after you do anything to the monster, finish a combo off, you go into Spinning Bludgeon, you prep the upswing, and then you land a beautiful offset in response to whatever the monster was going to do. Now you've finished your combo. I think it's a really cool flow for the weapon. We'll have to see what they've actually changed about it in full release. Alright, so here's an upset for our list here.
Hold on.
Next.
So I think the hammer's probably been always a pretty good weapon no matter what. It has its users. It's not dead. I think it's actually has pretty high because it's like, hey, I just want to do big damage and make ooga booga the boss in the face. That is the weapon to do that with. And I've always seen plenty of hammer users. I've never seen an issue with seeing any lack of them. And I think they look fun. So I'm not surprised they're not gonna really change anything. I feel like the hammer, they've always had a pretty good handle on it, especially in Worlds and Rise. I think they fit really well, and they've had the perfect formula for the hammer weapon a long time ago, and now they just keep refining it slightly. But there's not much to change. No reason to change anything about a weapon that's already does its job and has a fan base that loves for what it does. So it's nice. However, this longsword being this low is insane to me. The longsword is like always a thing I see. If it's not a longsword in an art of a Monster Hunter character, it's the greatsword. I'm really surprised it's here. I figured it'd be at least top 3. Second, maybe even.
Is Longsword. Basically middle of the pack, roughly sharing the spot with Dual Blades. Longsword is one of the strongest things in the beta. In Beta 1,
Wait,
it was
what?
like 3rd place for Raid Owl. In Beta 2, it's like 3rd place for Arkveld. It's absolutely insane, to the point where we're expecting it to take a little bit of a nerf at full release, though we've got to see what happens.
That's even more surprising to me, that it's insanely OP in the beta, yet it's this low. I wonder if people just were like, oh, okay, it's this strong, move on to things that are less strong, because I want to use everything, I wonder. But I'm just kind of surprised. The long swords, I felt, always had a really high fan base with the great sword, so I'm actually really surprised. And if it gets nerfs here, I just assume it's going to go even lower on the list. But I'm sure it won't be that bad. Longsword has always had a pretty good fan base. That's why I'm surprised they're not showing up here for this.
Happens. The new attack, full release after your Helmbreaker, being a ranged incredible DPS option, actually hitting harder than Helmbreaker itself. The way it's got one of the best focus mode strikes, because you can get not one but multiple wounds in one go with it, and that actually increases the spirit gauge level ups you get. The new spirit/charge attack that gives you just a spirit level on use. The new moveset when you're in red gauge, whether that's the new Crimson Slash combo, which is really quick and fun, really good range and good for making wounds, the greater range and control you have with focus mode for turning during your round slashes, extra combos on a round slash into another extra jumping spin, or the even better ranged ability of a Foresight Slash during red gauge. Basically, you've got loads of ways to level up now, you've got loads of ways to spend now, you've got enhanced properties when you're in red gauge, the DPS is nuts, and yeah, you're still going to have the great nature of the special sheath and the EI counter, and some of the coolest animations in the game, like say finishing a mount attack and that ridiculous anime sheath he does. So it's performing insane, its moveset's insane, it's one of the most popular weapons in the series, and yet our audience has it about middle of the pack. Not to say it's not popular, that's still a lot of votes, but that was a surprise. So you guys will have to tell me, why is Longsword middle of the pack in terms of our audience's popularity? Right there with it then is Dual Blades.
I'm surprised not to see any nerfs there. I wonder what's going on there. Oh, Dual Blades? I'm like, alright. Dual Blades, I think I've always been pretty good. I'm expecting it to perform well here. And it looks like it has if it's this high already.
And that is one of the weapons that I main. I feel that this version of Dual Blades is the best version that we've ever had. It's also arguably the hardest. What I'm talking about is the new nature of your main DPS combo, the Blade Dance combined with the Archdemons, Demon Flurry. And it's the way you transition between the two. Blade Dance is a longer attack and holds you in place, but great DPS. Demon Flurry is a lot shorter, but really good burst DPS considering how quick it is. So, if you're fishing, you're able to Demon Flurry and then see if you can swap to Blade Dance. or Demon Flurry to move around and see if you can Blade Dance in a new location. You can cancel the Blade Dance combo early by Demon Flurrying to interrupt, which gets you out of that animation lock. The fact that you're swapping between modes means whenever you drop into Archdemon during your Demon Flurry, you're getting stamina back. So min-maxing this weapon has new heights, not to mention the skill check that is Demon Dodge, that perfect evade that gives you a period of time where you have a buff increasing your element and physical damage, which is a big deal. Let alone the fact that it makes your evades deal damage while attacking, changing the now attack to move rotation. And you got one of the most satisfying wound break animations in the game, with a ridiculous Levi spine spin now being a meta move. This is the best version of Dual Blades in my opinion we've ever had, and I'm thrilled by it, so I'm very happy. And so yeah, it being about 7th, that's fair enough.
Yeah, okay. I can see that. I do like it's gonna be more skill expression. Anytime with these weapons that are very high DPS wise or just really interesting in terms of like popularity, I think having them be somewhat skill expression or be high skill ceiling, I think is the way. Like, for example, so many people tell me the bow is so easy to use, blah, 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 blah. But literally, it's like one of the hardest ones to master, in my personal opinion. I think the bow, you need to be really good with, not only with the boss mechanics, but also just be good with your aiming and be good with some of the other stuff that comes with that. And plus, the bow, you don't even want to ever be that far from the boss. It's a ranged weapon, but you want to be pretty much in the boss. And it's very agile. Well, like the Dual Blades. I think that's why I like both of them. I like to be very agile while the boss is very quick. Because I hate that slow feeling in a game like this. I just don't prefer it.
Just barely above it though for us was just 3 more votes for 300 votes, Insect Glaive. Crazy that this is as high as it is, considering all of the drama that happened around Beta 1 and the lack of the ability to do the aerial bounce. Why is it so high now then? Well, I think you got 2 sides to it. Firstly, this new version of Insect Glaive that's drastically changed the moveset and the general meta rotation, that feels fresh, it's different. You are lacking in the old minigame with the Kinsect, sure, but it's never been easier to actually get your essences because of Wound Break giving you that, and obviously the way you can use attacks, holding focus mode, and sending the Kinsect out to gather essences while you're doing your own glaive attacks at the same time. I think that's a lot more approachable for new people trying Insect Glaive, meaning a lot more people are interested in it. Not to mention, as always, the fact that it's performing really well in terms of the speedrun numbers. That's going to encourage people to try it because stronger weapon, more fun. Then you have the fact with the community update and all that information about it, that they've brought back the aerial playstyle. You've got that bouncing vault. It's coming back at launch. So everyone that was upset about that, they're getting it back.
That's cool. You know, I'm glad that the Monster Hunter Dead actually do listen to, like, hey, a lot of people really like the aerial battle of the Insect Blade. Let's give it to them. I don't super mind that. I get it, like, it's like its own little game and stuff. I get it, you know, and I'm just happy they're getting what they want, you know. And I'm not going to hate on anybody's weapon. I think all the weapons are really cool and interesting. I mostly hate on the players because some of the mains for some of these weapons, or for the communities for each one of these weapons, some of them are not the nicest people for some reason. And I'm like, every weapon should, you know, have their community and have their base, and we all should get along, in my personal opinion.
And you've got an offset coming for the super move. That's going to be incredibly useful. So it's looking awesome, and so it's pretty damn popular as it turns out. Above that though, at 5th place total is Switch Axe, which is a big surprise. I covered a lot of Switch Axe.
I actually don't know much about the Switch Axe in my personal opinion. I don't know very little about it. In the Charge Blade
version, while I did like a lot of the moveset and the options it had, I had a lot of issue with the balancing and the way that it felt to play in this version. It's a fact that the beta version simply has a new move, full release slash, that is basically all of your damage, and so you need to be spamming that as much as possible. But against something tough like Rei Dao or of course Archveld, you don't really have the time to do that in its full release version rather than interrupting it every time. Then you've got the offset, which is on axe mode, fair enough, but you got to be in axe mode for that. You're often in sword mode, so you have to use the new counter instead, which feels terrible because you're taking all this chip damage for using it. They've also kind of discouraged the use of the zero-sum discharge attach since it takes a bit longer. It's a bit more clunky now. There's a lot of issues I have with the beta version of the Switch Axe. So in the update for Switch Axe, we know some big things are coming. Damage increase, general moveset cleaning up, the counter, you now have a perfect counter if you time it well, getting punished by the chip damage way less. The full release is now going to be more chunky. It seems to hit harder based on what they've suggested, but also it's got hyper armor, so you're getting that thing off. So I think there's a lot of Switch Axe fans on the channel. I think there's a lot of people disappointed by the form of it in the beta, understandably. I think there's a lot of people very excited about what's coming in the full release version, where it seems like it's going to be really good. So
that's cool. And this looks like this might be the biggest benefiter of the beta right here, because those buffs are massive. Those buffs are massive, and I'm not gonna be surprised if this weapon ends up being like that 4th, 5th spot in terms of like, or like that dirt spot in terms of damage, or 4th spot. Like, hey, this weapon's pretty good, but it's not as slow as the Great Axe and or the Great Sword and so on. That like, this is pretty good. That's gonna have its fan base, and it's gonna be up there. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's actually looking like a more popular weapon. 4th place above that, then we have
Bow. Okay.
Beta 1 and Beta.
And you know what? I'm not surprised this is the 4th place. This feels like the right spot.
2. It's no surprise then that the strongest weapon is one of the most popular ones. It's the usual way things go. Though having said that, bow is a more popular weapon in general, but this version's insane. I love the way they changed the coating mechanic, so you're no longer having to stock up and craft and awkward stuff with that. Now you just build the gauge and spend it on coating.
That is cool. Okay, I really like that. I hated running out of coatings and having to craft them, especially in the early game. That's sick. Okay, you just build meter and then you can use the meter and then do different type of coding. That's great. That means you could be utility in a way instead of just using the same coding. That is amazing. I love that as a change.
That's awesome. Then you've got tracer arrows, new mechanic, allowing bow to accurately hit the weak points, really focus the damage in one location, sending all the arrows there. The way that they've
that's so sick. I'm not surprised this overperformed super well. That makes so much sense. Trace arrows where you can always make sure to hit that critical thing. So that sounds absolutely busted.
Actually got the Dragon Piercer to be part of the meta moveset.
Yeah.
Focus mode attack being a quicker shot. Super cool. Then you've got Discerning Dodge, which gives you stamina back when you land a
what? That sounds dope too.
And all the other new moves and returning moves. It's absolutely incredible what they've done to the moveset of bow for Wilds. We do know some changes are coming in that the wound targeting is going to be a lot slower and more specific.
Oh, come on.
In the way that they've reduced the output you're getting from tracer arrows, but they have buffed normal arrows to compensate. So I do think it's going to feel a little bit weaker, but it's still going to be one of, if not the top performer at launch. We'll have to see how it turns out.
Yeah, no, the tracer arrow still sounds so good. I kind of don't like that. It makes some things less. I feel like it's going to make, but some people be like, oh, bow's even easier, because now sometimes you won't have to always aim super well. But you know what? I feel like if you do play bow well, you still overperform people that are spamming the tracer arrows, because the regular arrows are buffed. So if you're hitting the boss, which you should be able to be going around the battlefield very mobile. This is like the most. This is the more to me. This is the most mobile range class that there is. You can do a lot of near the boss, a lot of hitting constantly without no stop. And if you're not spamming the tracer arrows and you're shooting a lot with your regular arrows, you should out DPS it anyways and still be pretty up there. I feel like bow will still be pretty good just in general, but the people that are gonna overperform with it are gonna definitely shine. I feel, and that's what I'm gonna be aiming for. I played my bow very well in Worlds, and I plan to do it here as well.
Oh, but yes, its popularity makes sense. Above that, then, just barely, we have 3rd place, which is
goodness.
Top performer in Beta 2 for sure, also Beta 1. Its new moveset, the diagonal explosions, the double worm stake explosion, the fact that you can double do the Wyvern explode shot, is just awesome. And then it's like the subtle stuff, like the ability to use shelling to do micro movement, which really helps you get out of the bad location into the optimal spot while maintaining a bit of DPS. And it's a shield weapon, so you get the benefits of the new stuff like a clash. The new wound attack, where they sort of drill into the target, super satisfying. It's always been a really cool weapon, but I think it was a little bit comical in Rise and Sunbreak with the aerial zooming around. As cool as that was, this version just feels a lot more grounded, weighty, and strong. So yes, obviously it's one of the most popular weapons, and we already know Greatsword is 1st place, so what came 2nd? Well, it's the new Charge Blade, which has been one of my main weapons for a while.
And you know what? Okay, I know the Charge Blade was pretty popular in Worlds. and I see a lot of people that were trying to use it. I just knew it was very difficult to use, so not many people were using it. But I mean, I know a lot of people weren't using it well. Well, there's a lot of people that were using it. There just wasn't a lot of people using it well, so a lot of people didn't put it down. If they buffed a lot about it or made it more accessible, I think that would make sense why the charge blade might be more popular. Or maybe it's just some cooler things that are very similar to the greatsword, and they're like, oh, this is like the next best thing.
And I actually plan to main it alongside dual blades at launch. Why is it so popular? It's because it's so good. It's performed as a top weapon in beta 1 and 2, and it's also, in my opinion, never been more approachable, because the new meta of the weapon is leaning into Power Axe or Savage Axe mode, whatever you want to call it, the chainsaw mode, by activating Power Axe by landing a perfect guard and then pulling out the axe, or popping a wound, or finishing a mount attack, or a clash and then transform into axe. So you got loads of ways to actually get into Power Axe, and then when you're there, you get this incredibly satisfying new moveset where you're doing these spinning saw attacks with great range, by the way, holding the button to chainsaw into the target, getting into that amped element discharge, and then that new follow-up where he spins the axe around his neck and rests it on his shoulder. I mean, just incredible visually. So it feels awesome, and it looks awesome, and it's also never been more approachable, because what I just described, you're basically just pressing B or circle over and over again. Not that complicated. Of course, you...
Okay, you know what? That sounds actually pretty sick. That sounds like a really simple one to get into, but also like fun to use. I actually might try that out myself personally.
You still have to play sword and shield and charge the shield up, but there's a new way to do that, which is also more forgiving and kind of easy to understand. You know, you put the sword into the shield and then you hold circle to fully charge up the shield. It just feels intuitive. Of course, you can still do it the old way by going into an amped and then interrupting that with a transform, and that's still obviously a meta way to do it. But yeah, I just think it's a lot more approachable, alongside visually being incredible and feel-wise just so meaty with the chainsaw hits. So I'm not surprised it's so popular as well. So this is our full poll on the list and the ordering, just so you can see at the end here.
So light bowgun heavy bowgun being like near the end, I'm not surprised. Lance not being down there makes sense, because Lance has always been kind of a lower tier weapon as well for people that play it. I hate that there's not more Lance users. Hunting Horn, yeah, being kind of low, even though I expected it to be even lower. I expected it to basically take B where Lance is and Lance be where Hunting Horn is, so I'm surprised. So the hammer and sword and shield, that makes sense to me as well. However, the longsword being as low as it is insane to me, especially if it was overperforming. Maybe we're just sick of seeing it. But I can see why as well, because the charge blade, gun lance, even the switch axe, they all seem like they got really good changes, and they seem like they're really fun to use. Honestly, I might try one of those just for funsies. Hammer, yeah, like I said, dual blades. I thought dual blades would just be higher. Like gun lance being up there with switch axe, to me just blows my mind. I do think they should be down lower, and dual blades would have been higher, at least top 4. I'm really surprised. Instant glaive seems fine, but yeah, no. Bow being 4th seems exactly what I expected. I expected it to be 3rd or 4th. I never expected it to be 2nd. People rather use swords and stuff to beat up monsters than a bow. I get it. Trust me, I understand. But yeah, no. Everything here seems pretty much what I expected, besides, like I said, the charge blade and the gun lance and the switch axe. Some of those could be switched around, but dual blades and longswords not being up there, since they're like really the classics, blows my mind. It really does. But yeah, no, I'm real happy to see that. I kind of see what they will be changing, and definitely with what I saw for the bow and what I heard, I'm definitely going to be playing bow for sure. I was thinking to do something different, but I can't. I love using the bow. I love the mobility. I love being real close to the monster still, but also being a little bit of utility and be able to always constantly be doing damage to the monster. And trust me, you'll know when you're playing with a bad bow user, because when they can't upkeep their damage. They should be able to upkeep their damage really well, especially when the monster starts being more mobile and stuff, or when situations where no one wants to get close to the monster because it's doing some crazy move. You should be able to constantly keep hitting the bastard, and that's where the bow shines. Your damage might not always be the greatest, like a great sword, but you should be doing it consistently and pretty safely as well. So I'm excited to show that. And Tracer Arrow just sounds stupid and ridiculous, especially when you get some monsters like the ones that are probably gonna move around a lot. That's gonna be insane. All right. But yeah, no, I'm not surprised that was nerfed. Okay, guys, well, I hope you guys check out this guy's channel right here. He does a lot. I'm sure you guys know this, Rage Gaming videos. He did a lot of Monster Hunter World. Check his channel out. You know, good. He does good stuff. And I hope you guys, I can't believe I wasn't subscribed. I hope you guys, show him some love. And I hope you guys show me some love by liking and subscribing as well. Anyhow, guys, I can't wait for Monster Hunter's World. I hope you will be there to join me as well. Alright, guys. Well, don't forget to like, subscribe, all that good stuff you guys usually do. And remember, there's only 2 kinds of people in this world. Become the 3rd. And I'll see you next time.